Imagine a wall device that slashes AC power draw, regenerates lead-acid batteries, and physically alters your biology, all using DIY electrochemistry. The Polish Keshe Foundation community codified these methods during an open-source workshop in April 2016, presenting them as repeatable engineering benchmarks. To understand these results, we have to look past standard electrical engineering. This group builds circuitry based on a philosophy treating hardware as a living biomimetic system. Their technological framework is structured around three interconnected pillars: hardware architecture, synthesis of novel materials called GANS, and biological intervention protocols. To understand the anomalous data, we must map their internal logic, starting at the bottom, with their base hardware unit. We are not looking at mainstream electronics. We are objectively deconstructing a highly divergent, intention-driven DIY subculture. The bedrock of this ecosystem is a handmade component they call the battery capacitor. Construction begins with raw copper wire, exactly 28 centimeters long and 1.6 millimeters thick, paired with standard aluminum kitchen foil. The layout is highly specific. The copper wire is looped at both ends to form a core, while foil is cut into 15 by 16 centimeter rectangles. Between the layers sits the dielectric, a sheet of baking parchment, completely saturated in an organic plasma paste. This paste relies on a precise chemical recipe: water, dissolved sugar, natural plant ash, and coconut or olive oil. The builder takes the soaked parchment, layers it directly with the aluminum foil, and wraps it tightly around that central copper core. Here is where the biomimetic logic kicks in. The capacitor must maintain roughly 75% hydration at all times to generate what they call a plasma field. To prevent the paste from drying out, builders seal these units inside glass jars or encase them in wax. The wax method, however, severely limits the current to mere microamps. Treating a coarse circuit component like a living organism that must be watered alters the baseline rules of hardware design. When you connect three of these organic battery capacitors into a closed loop, you create a device the Polish community calls the cube. The electrical logic of this loop is strict. Two of the units function as capacitors, while the third acts as a battery. Before assembly, the copper wire must undergo nano-coating, usually through fire or caustic soda, transforming its surface into a superinsulator. This introduces an immediate electrical hazard. Until that nano-layer fully matures, the device creates a dead short circuit directly across the aluminum foil. To bypass the hazard, the installation protocol is rigid. The cube is wired exclusively in series with the live phase line of an AC plug. It never touches the neutral. Once installed, the Polish builders reported their household power draw dropping from 300 watts down to 212 watts. Proving these metrics physically presents a problem, as standard multimeters are allegedly incapable of reading plasma field generation. To measure the output, they constructed a custom probe using two copper coils attached to a microwave radar diode and an LED. We have a highly standardized, dangerous AC electrical grid being actively utilized to power DIY devices governed by unverified, esoteric physics. The most striking empirical data comes from a case study run by a builder named Joseph, testing depleted 5-year-old 12-volt, 7-amp-hour lead-acid batteries. These batteries were used to power a standard electric scooter, providing a clear baseline for performance. Initially, the scooter had a 20-kilometer range, but when the attached DIY plasma capacitor dried out, that range degraded to just 6 kilometers. Joseph initiated a repair protocol, rehydrating the capacitor with water and hydrogen peroxide and hermetically sealing it in a glass jar. Within a week, the battery efficiency allegedly restored, returning the electric scooter to its full 20-kilometer operational range. The most radical part of this experiment is the charging method. The regeneration required no direct AC power, relying entirely on ambient plasma fields gathered by attached antennas. If these metrics are accurate, they suggest a direct interaction between lead-acid chemical degradation and the localized magnetic fields generated by the capacitor. Ambient field absorption relies on a foundational synthesized material known within the community as GANS, or gas in a nanosolid state. Producing this GANS material involves the thermal or caustic degradation of specific source metals to alter their atomic structure. Builders synthesize several primary variants, typically focusing on CO2, zinc, and copper oxide. Lead GANS serves a highly specific function. It does not produce current. Instead, it acts as a massive magnetic field pump, absorbing heavy ambient energies. Biological applications follow strict rules. Raw GANS is toxic. Instead, builders transfer its energetic properties into distilled water through field memory. To test this, the Polish cohort tracked 50 participants' physiological responses at varying proximity to the GANS. Participants reported rapid agricultural seed germination, physical heat generation after drinking the exposed water, and symptoms consistent with heavy metal detoxification. The Foundation scales this logic to an extreme. They claim this exact GANS water protocol was secretly utilized by TEPCO to treat radiation sickness in nuclear workers at the Fukushima complex. The move towards GANS marks a departure from hardware assembly, focusing instead on the use of water to transmit information to living systems. All of these DIY builds lead to a specific philosophical endpoint. The physical hardware is ultimately treated as a training mechanism for human consciousness. Devices like the cube are theorized to create a localized Faraday box, an isolated bubble of reality governed entirely by biomagnetism. To train within this bubble, users practice an intention exercise. They hold 2 nano-coated copper wires over an active device, positioning them like hands on a clock face. The objective is to mentally align with specific frequencies to manifest physical outputs. For example, adjusting the wires and your intention to spontaneously taste a piece of fruit. The community believes a future demographic, which they refer to as indigo children, is already being born with this frequency alignment completely innate. For that demographic, the logical conclusion is total obsolescence. Physical hardware, massive power grids, and traditional agriculture will no longer be necessary. Regardless of external validation, the 2016 Polish cohort established a consistent internal logic for their work, one that attempts to bridge the gap between open-source hardware and the focused intent of the builder.